Yo, what's good? What's good? What's good? It's good to be back. NBA YouTube. It's your man, 100 Grand Ross with The Rock Never Stops, coming to you with another episode of NBA content. Today, we are getting into it. We are getting into it. Um, for those who know me and follow my channel, you also know that I get into a lot of other topics that evolve around the sport of basketball and the NBA. And one of those topics is social justice and definitely racism. And for those of you who are following this situation, you know it seems like a really sticky situation. It's a situation that a lot of people have been kind of uncertain of how to navigate it. But to me, honestly, y'all shouldn't be shocked at all. Y'all should be like, yeah, it sounds about right. And so we're going to talk more about that in today's episode. What's going on with Phoenix Suns team owner Robert Sarver and his allegations and reports of racially insensitive comments, prejudice, and misogyny within that organization. If you like the video, please like, subscribe, comment. I definitely leave comments, responses, and even if you got some video ideas, I definitely try to take those in as well. But without further ado, let's dive into this topic. First off, when we have this discussion, we have to begin to define certain ways of understanding this topic at hand, which is racism, discrimination, prejudice, bias. So I'm going to run through it real quick just so that when we're using this vocabulary, you're actually able to pick up on it and be able to say, oh, okay, I get what you're trying to say. Because a lot of times all these things become conflated under this general umbrella of racism. Is somebody racist or not? Right? And this could be very misleading. First thing I want to define is racism. Racism and being racist are two different things. Racism is actually a system of oppression that's based around privileging those of a certain skin color, and in this case, whiteness over blackness. It is a system, it's an institution that has incentives, it has resources given, it has different things that will ensure that these things are maintained throughout society or throughout an organization, an institution, or a space, right? Oh, what's up? I Jamie from the 905. Yo, I'm actually about to do a video on the Cavs Raptors game after this. Um, but so understanding that racism is a system. It's not just something that somebody feels from moment to moment. The next part is prejudice. Prejudice is your judgment on something else. Now, prejudice is not necessarily wrong, right? We walk down the street, we see a dog that's foaming out the mouth. We prejudge it and we say it's dangerous and we cross the street. Not problematic. It's important. That's how human beings survive. It is problematic when you see somebody who's black or of a certain color or a certain gender or a certain sexual or orientation and you cast judgments that then cause you to do harm. That's when it becomes an issue and problematic. And that's kind of where we find ourselves in today. The next part is bias. Understanding bias is extremely important. The main aspect about understanding bias is that it's an unconscious thing. Even though you can be aware of it, you can see yourself acting in particular ways. Most of the time, the catalyst or the initiation of operating with prejudice against someone based around their race, gender, sexual orientation, a religious background is unconscious. It's unconscious. It's indicative of living in the United States, living in a Western post colonial world where we have been saturated and inundated for generations and a lifetime of these different stereotypes about different communities and has been internalized. All right. So get it. Bias, unconscious. You're acting upon prejudice, which is not wrong unless it's aimed at different community groups and it actually causes harm. This is where it becomes an issue. Lastly, racism is not being racist. Racism is a system of maintaining oppression based around skin color. All right. This is the intersection of today. All right. I also want to define misogyny. Misogyny are beliefs and practices held or done against women that are specifically around being derogatory or minimizing their value, worth, having different prejudices against them. But it is very visceral, it's very overt. That is misogyny. Patriarchy is a system of privileging men over women, or male bodied beings, or male presenting, or stereotypically male presenting um, traits or behaviors, right? So this could look like being more aggressive is seen as more leadership prone versus being less aggressive is seen more feminine and less valued within an institution. And so the person who's more aggressive is given the title of leader and more opportunities, raises, stuff like that. And you get the point. But this is the intersection that we find ourselves in with this topic today. Mr. Robert Sarver, first of all, any of you who are shocked have just simply either had blinders on or have not actually been following who this guy is. This guy has been problematic for years. For years, there's been rumblings. And it's interesting that Chris Paul is there when this is coming out, because where was he at last time? We had a huge incident with an NBA team owner, Los Angeles Clippers, right? Los Angeles Clippers. I'm not even going to speak the man's name. The previous owner who did things like lose on purpose so he can write off the losses on his taxes. Individual who made all sorts of racist comments about black men, specifically the one and only, the epic, the Hall of Fame, one of the greatest of all time, Magic Johnson, right? Having an affair with a black woman and still had racist comments to make about black men and black players. Craziness, right? But there were rumblings for decades against this guy. Previous employees, coaches, players had all made comments saying, yo, this dude is problematic. This dude is tripping. This dude is doing too much. This dude is acting completely out of bounds. Now, the sad part is that we don't have a society yet that really people can just name it and people understand, right? We always feel the need to kind of like color it up. Well, he was acting inappropriately. Nah, the dude was racist. The dude was literally saying racist remarks about black men. Literally, literally. Once you're saying it, it's no longer about, hey, you're kind of inappropriate. No, you're just behaving racist. Now, the worst part about it is people had been saying something to him behind closed doors. And I'm talking about, the Clippers owner in the past. But now it comes out that people were saying things to Robert Sarver as well in the past. Mr. Earl Watson, Mr. UCLA himself, coaching for the Phoenix Suns. And he's telling this dude, yo, you can't say that. You got to stop using the N-word. And he goes, you know what? I'm using the N-word, saying it, because this guy's saying it. And if he can say it, I can say it. And this is the epitome of what we call white privilege, especially for white men, especially for rich white men who have the ability to shift narratives and control how people perceive them based around their class, their income, their wealth, and an ability to spend money in order to control things. And this dude obviously was so far removed from reality in his wealth and privileges and access that he was just like, I don't care. I'm gonna keep using it. And matter of fact, if you got a problem with it, you and I are gonna have a problem. And this is really how systems of racism are really established. At the top, you have individuals who are not just compliant with racist practices, with the prejudice and discrimination and the stereotyping, but they're also complicit. They are practicing these things regularly, so much so that it becomes normalized. And then incentives are built around it. If you keep your mouth shut, you can get hired. You don't say anything, you can get promoted. If you do, you get demoted, you get written up, you get fired. And this is what we see taking place in this organization. Now, the crazy part about it is I'm pretty sure there's going to be people out there who go like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this happened. Is this really true? Is this really what he's like? And for me, I'm like, really? Are we really still asking that question in 2021? Really? We already had to take down these Confederate flags, these these racist statues of these generals and captains who led the war to be able to maintain slavery. We still have Black Lives Matter. We already had all these. We got critical race theory conversations. We've got more conversation and dialogue around these topics. And so much so, like there's so much exposure, even just within like Me Too movement, right? And understanding how misogyny and patriarchy plays itself out in organizations and institutions every single day. And yet people are still like, is it really? I don't know. He seems like a nice guy. He hired some black people and some women. So there's no way. And this is kind of the crux of where a lot of people get it wrong. Where a lot of people get it wrong. Being somebody who operates in a racist way does not mean every single moment of every single day you're walking around with a hood or a sheet over your face and the eyes poked out, and then you're calling people the N-word left and right. That's not what this is about. That's not how it works. We have to stop thinking in absolutes. You don't have to be 100% of the time this disgustingly racist, prejudicial individual. I bet Robert Sarver's got real black friends. And unfortunately, I hope not, but they tend to come to these people's side. Oh, we go to cookouts and we have a great time. We ate a burger together. We hung out at the golf course. I've never heard anything. That doesn't negate that he's not doing it in other spaces. It doesn't. It doesn't. People have to understand that people have different parts of them and different sides of them in different settings. If you have kids, you recognize that your kids at school are a completely different person than they are at home, than they are just walking around the neighborhood and playing with their friends outside. They have different personalities in different spaces. And it's like when you really understand how it plays out, you understand that when these accusations are made, you need to adjust your frame of reference. It's not if it happened. It's not if it happened. More than likely, it's when. You know why? Because we all live in a society, in a world that has been framed with these ways of seeing one another for hundreds of years. And there's been a system of privileging those who benefit the most from this framing. Rich white males. And it's not an attack against rich white males. It's just to acknowledge there's an institutional system set up in government in this world that goes back to the beginnings of colonization, whether it was through the transatlantic slave trade or trans-Sahara, that has privileged people of lighter skin, whiter skin, and being male. And when you begin to understand history, you don't get shocked that the byproducts of that history continue to emerge, especially when the individuals who are privileged the most from maintaining those systems and those ways of seeing the world are all in positions of leadership. They're all in positions of leadership. And so when you understand that very, very few people have the opportunity to check somebody like Robert Sarver, what we're able to check in this space is through our use of media and what they call public shaming. Public shaming is one of the most powerful weapons humanity has. When communities get together and say that behavior is wrong, it's deplorable, we don't support it, we don't want it, and we're going to hold you accountable by simply moving away from you. We're not going to support you. We're not going to follow you. We're not going to give you business. We're not going to give you our resources. We're not going to give you our time. We're not going to give you our trust. And that's how you actually move, not just culture, but you actually move somebody's power. And that's why you see these individuals in positions of authority spend so much money shaping narratives, because they know without a shadow of a doubt, if society or a cultural community says we don't support you, they can't do business. The businesses lose value. They don't get supported. All of a sudden now you have less access to resources and power and control. And that's what actually creates the change. And so right now what we're seeing is how change takes place. Somebody who's brave enough to speak up, most of the time they get most of the flack. Mr. Earl Watson, y'all should look out for him, because more than likely he's going to catch a lot of hell. He's going to get the racist phone calls. He's going to get the death threats. He's going to get called a liar. He's going to get black people who speak out on behalf of Robert Sarver. He's always been a nice guy. You're going to get women who say, "Oh, he's such a great guy. He probably has, women in his family. He might be married." I didn't even look it up. I don't care. He might be married. Oh, he's been such a great husband, a great father. That does not mean in other settings he does not behave differently. And so when somebody does blow a whistle, it's not if this has been happening, it's when did it happen? And how can I adjust my behavior to support change, change for the better, if that's what you believe in? And so as I watch this situation unfold, yeah, Chris Paul sniffing them out like truffles. Yo, real talk. Chris Paul just seems to land there. If you sign him, you better get your act together. But it's to say, when we see these things happening, let's make sure that we orient ourselves in the society that we're living in so we don't get one shocked and caught off guard, but two, that we don't end up becoming a part of maintaining these systems of oppression, that we don't end up becoming a part of maintaining patriarchy and misogyny and racism because we would rather feel more comfortable trying to minimize it or act like it's not happening so that we don't have to deal with if it's potentially happening in our lives or if we've been a part of it all along. And so that's the end of today's video. Please definitely like, subscribe. Jamie from the 905. It's always dope to see you, man. And I look forward to your comments on the video. Let me know if you got some ideas that you want me to do a video on. But I'm glad to be back. I'm excited. And I hope y'all have a great weekend. Peace.